It's a myth in the pyramidical form in which, say, the sexual harassment law is structured. It assumes that the top boss is going to put the system in place, and therefore there's a presumption that the man on top is actually not going to himself perpetrate any form of sexual harassment. If a woman is on the street and she screams saying a man has done this, there will be a crowd for sure. But will they necessarily support her? She doesn't know. We cannot have any behavior which we are going to now say, this is the proper behavior of a sexually harassed or sexually assaulted woman. I think what the Me Too movement, and this was a global movement as we know, it was not only found in the entertainment and media industry, but also prominently in the academia. And what we did see, and here there were resonance between what we saw globally and what we saw in India, is that there were patterns that emerged. For instance, that women found courage in numbers. They came out to speak when one woman complained of sexual harassment. Many others who had been sexually harassed by the same man were able to summon the courage to come forward. Sometimes it takes a long time. It can take many years for women to come forward and to say, particularly against men who are in positions of power and authority. We also saw that it was very widespread. It also became clear that it's not as though any sphere of life, any work sphere was free from sexual harassment. It was taking place in almost every work sphere that women were there in. It's a myth in the pyramidical form in which, say, the sexual harassment law is structured. It assumes that the top boss is going to put the system in place for sexual harassment complaints to be addressed. And therefore, there's a presumption that the man on top is actually not going to himself perpetrate any form of sexual harassment. What we do see is that in many of these cases, it was actually the man on top. And you can be the greatest actor and at the same time perpetrate sexual harassment on women who are more vulnerable at the workspace. And it actually exposed to us what is the nature and the labyrinth of sexual harassment that women are talking about. And we don't have an understanding today. We have just begun to get a glimpse into this. We don't have an understanding about how the dynamics of sexual harassment. And this is an area that needs much, much more work, research, study, listening to women and documenting what they are saying. There are limits to the law. Why did the Me Too movement happen? Because the law was inadequate to address what the women were having to suffer at the workplace, how women were not being able to actually perform their jobs. And it showed the limits of law to us. Why does the woman not speak out at that moment? And so in many situations, there wasn't a sexual harassment committee. If you do not put the redressal mechanism as mandated by the Vishakha guidelines way back in 1997, then the burden is not on the woman to say, why didn't you complain? Where should I complain? There is no mechanism to complain, especially when the person against whom the complaint is being made is very powerful in the structure at the workplace. I do not know any woman who in the first instance goes rushing to either a committee or to the police station if she faces sexual harassment. Women will keep trying to find a way of sending signals, messages, saying that, okay, I'm not interested and maybe he'll leave me alone. But they often don't. There will be a scandal made around those women's lives. Why did they not speak? Because they knew they would lose jobs. And is that not happening? If your tenure is a contractual tenure, you stand a huge risk by complaining. So we have to also look at how employment is organized. We don't have an enabling environment, and therefore the delay is not because she did not want to complain then, is because she didn't have the confidence, and the system and the law will have to take that into account, as it has in some situations. This is how patriarchy and gender bias and stereotypes are embedded not only in our minds, in our subconscious, but within the legal system. And this gender bias, the stereotyping and myths about women and how women react, who women are, how women conduct themselves, why women complain, are embedded in the entire legal system and in the ICs. So, for instance, how a woman would react post a sexual assault, there absolutely can never be a pattern. You can't even say, okay, there are 4 or 5 ways. Each woman is going to respond and react very differently. And there is no right or wrong. Let's take the case of domestic violence. I have known, not only as a lawyer, but also in my family, extended families, that a woman may have had been physically or mentally abused, but she will be smiling and she will go out for whatever function that she needs to accompany her spouse. They will not show. This is how we have been conditioned and socialized. We also know that women invariably in the beginning are unsure. Why is this happening to me? Why is he sexually harassing me? Have I done something? Is it my clothes? This is how we are also conditioned to think. And that's why I said, let's document. Document what? How did women react? And without saying what is right or wrong. The burden cannot be on me to make a noise. I may not make a noise. These are socially highly uncomfortable situations. Even today, if a woman is on the street and she screams saying a man has done this, there will be a crowd for sure. But will they necessarily support her? She doesn't know. I've had a client who went to a busy restaurant. She said, I didn't want to be alone. We cannot have any behavior which we are going to now say, this is the proper behavior of a sexually harassed or sexually assaulted woman. And if courts do not know that, then they will have to unlearn the stereotypes. So the IC needs to first understand the nature of sexual harassment. The IC cannot perform the right job unless they are oriented and they are trained. And just because you are nominated to it, it's anyway considered as the unimportant thing in the office and a waste of time in the office. Although all data will show to you that sexual harassment impacts productivity. So it is in the interest of a workplace to actually have its system in place. IC needs to do a lot of preventive work, not just wait for a complaint. How do you create an environment where people know that sexual harassment is a wrong? They should not do it. What is the kind of sexual harassment that women are feeling? All this should be done by the IC. So we need to put a lot of training, orientation in place. These are the building blocks that need to be put. Is this a priority for any employer? No. The state actually has a role to play in this, and it's inbuilt into the law that the state will monitor and see that the mechanisms are in place. I don't know a single state across the country which has actually monitored whether systems are in place, which has monitored whether the ICs are trained, whether the ICs are functioning well. All this is a statutory obligation of the state, which the state is not performing.